Hi guys, we're here with our next video, which is all about body cavities. So every organ sits inside special spaces inside the body, and some of those spaces have names. That's your body cavities. So I'm going to start sharing my screen with you now. And we're going to look at some of the different body cavities that are present inside the body. So you should be able to see my PowerPoint now. I'm going to get my pen so I can make some notes for you as we go through. And let's look at some of the body cavities. So these are providing space for the organ and protection for the organs. So to start with, there are several kind of subdivisions and divisions within divisions here when we're talking about body cavities. So the first big split is that there's a dorsal body cavity and a ventral body cavity. Dorsal means towards the back. Think of a dolphin. They've got the dorsal fin, or a shark, I guess, because you're really going to get out of the water fast if you see the shark coming towards you, right? So the dorsal fin is on the back. So the dorsal cavity is towards the back of the body, and the ventral cavity is towards the front, or sometimes people say towards the belly side of the body. So let's look at our picture because it illustrates it quite nicely here for us. So you can see the dorsal body cavity is towards the back, and it's colored in yellow on our picture. So the dorsal body cavity has two subdivisions, the cranial cavity. So here, this yellow here, this is the cranial cavity, which is part of the dorsal body cavity. And what's inside there? The brain. And then as you move down, see there's a space all the way down here inside the vertebrae. This is called the vertebral cavity, and it has the spinal cord inside. So basically you could say the nervous system, the brain and the spinal cord, most of it is inside this dorsal or back body cavity. So the dorsal body cavity has the brain and the spinal cord. Now let's look at the ventral body cavity. So the ventral body cavity is on the anterior, the front side, the belly side, whatever you want to call this. And all these red sections are part of the ventral body cavities. So you can see that the ventral body cavity is actually divided into three different areas: thoracic, abdominal, and pelvic cavities. So the thoracic cavity, another name for thoracic is chest, or thorax is chest. So the thoracic cavity is the chest cavity. So of course we're going to have the heart, the lungs inside the thoracic cavity. The abdominal cavity is in here. So all your digestive system is inside this abdominal cavity. And then as you move down lower, you've got the pelvic cavity. The pelvic cavity is where you're going to find your bladder, your uterus, your rectum. All these structures are going to be in the pelvic cavity. So very important, there is a really important structure here, and you can see that there is a divider. See right here? There is a divider that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity. It's called the diaphragm. It's a skeletal muscle. It's a big muscle that's right under your lungs, and it acts as the divider that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominopelvic cavity, or the abdominal cavity. So it's a very common multiple choice question. What is the name of the structure that separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominal cavity? It's called the diaphragm. Now, I mentioned there abdominopelvic. The abdominal cavity and the pelvic cavity don't really have anything separating them. So they kind of mush together. So instead of calling it abdominal cavity and pelvic cavity, often they smush those two words together and call it the abdominopelvic cavity. So like I was saying, these slides kind of take us through again in more detail. So in your cranial cavity, you're going to have your brain. In your vertebral cavity, you're going to have your spinal cord. And both of these are subdivisions of your dorsal body cavity. And your ventral body cavity has those three subdivisions I talked about: thoracic, abdominal, and pelvic cavities. And then inside the thoracic cavity, there's actually three more divisions. So the heart has its own personal cavity that it sits inside. Each lung has its own cavity that they sit inside. And then there's this area called the mediastinum. That's where your esophagus, your trachea, your large blood vessels are sitting inside that thoracic cavity. So actually, the thoracic cavity has three subdivisions inside. So let's look at the three subdivisions of the thoracic cavity. They're right here in this diagram. So this diagram is just talking about the ventral body cavity, just that front part of the body. We got the thoracic, which is the chest cavity, and then we got the abdominopelvic, which is the abdomen and pelvic regions. So remember I said the thoracic cavity has three divisions. The pleural cavity surrounds the lungs, okay? So we've got right pleural cavity for right lung, left pleural cavity for left lung. So each lung has its own personal compartment inside that ventral body cavity. They're called the pleural cavities. Think there's two lungs. So if there's more than one of something, we say plural. So two lungs, pleural cavity. Now, I mentioned the mediastinum. This is the area that contains the trachea, your windpipe, the esophagus, that's the tube that brings the food down from your mouth to your stomach. And there's a lot of big blood vessels like the aorta, the vena cava in this mediastinum as well. So it's an area right in the center of the ventral body cavity. And then I mentioned the heart has its own cavity. It's called the pericardial cavity. So let's break down this word. Peri, this first part, means around. Cardiac is anything to do with the heart. If you go to a cardiac surgeon, you're getting heart surgery. So pericardial means around the heart. So this is the cavity or the space that goes around the heart. And now if we come over here to the abdominopelvic cavity, again, there are some subdivisions within there. You've got the peritoneal cavity. The peritoneum we're going to learn about later. This is a special membrane that covers all the organs of the digestive system. And we've got the subdivisions, abdominal and pelvic. So a lot of your urinary system, reproductive system, and some parts of your digestive system are way down deep there in the pelvic cavity. And your hip bones, your os coxae, actually protect a lot of those organs inside that pelvic cavity. Okay, so let's look at a common exam question. Here's a nice picture. And then our question is, what structure separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominopelvic cavity? So let's look. Who is dividing the thoracic cavity, which is here, from the abdominopelvic cavities, which are down here? It's this muscle called the diaphragm. So here you can see also, here's that little cavity for the heart, pericardial, around the heart. Here's the cavity for the lungs, plural, two lungs, plural cavity. So you can see that inside there too. And there's more pictures of this in your textbook from lots of different angles, and that'll help you to study. So the answer to our question here, what structure separates the thoracic cavity from the abdominopelvic cavity? The answer is diaphragm. Okay, so those are the different cavities for the organs inside your body. And again, if you're in lab, you get to enjoy trying to match up which organ is found in which cavity. We're going to do that as part of our lab exercises. And we're going to study these cavities in the lab and see them on our organ model. You can also look in your textbook. There's some really nice pictures in there that will help you study this. And we're going to do an exercise in lecture as well.